Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts between Taramina's on Orion Neighborhood Television. We also like to welcome our friends from Oxford Community Television who is watching us right now via on TV. So you look at the OAA, in boys basketball, of course, we had one basketball team now remains. It's the Clarkson Wolves. Of course, we had three OAA teams remaining. It was four OAA teams. Excuse me. You had Avondale play Clarkston, and you had Oak Park play North Farmington in the regional semifinals, and then it ended up being North Farmington ended up playing University of Detroit Jesuit in the regional final over at Southfield, and Clarkson played Macomb, Dakota at Troy. So when you look at the games there, you look at the recap in each of those games. I mean, you look at what North Farmington did. Of course, I personally thought if they would have in the game with Oak Park, it was really pretty much like a tale of a whole season for Oak Park. When you look at it, especially they shut down Rodney Scales. Very similar to what Lake Orion did when they went into Oak Park and beat them there. Basically, the key for Oak Park was if you shut down Rodney Scales, he basically shut down the Knights. And if they would have had Kevon Fuller for that one, I don't know how it would have came down, but you got to give North Farmington a lot of credit. Of course, Jerome Rogers played very well in that game. And then the game against the University of Detroit Jesuit, when you look at what happened there in that game, I was surprised when I looked at the score. I mean, it was 52-34. I was really, really shocked. I thought North Farmington would have played much better, than they showed in that outing when they played. It kind of was when I look at that game, it was like, what's going on with North Farmington? You know what I mean? Of course, a lot of people, some of the people here, look at my Twitter page, you know what I mean? I'm looking at, of course, I had the hashtag OAA Now. But when you look at what happened in that game, I just thought UD Jesuit, the difference that game was the inside the glass. And also Kenneth Winston. Winston's a good ball player. He's only a junior, but they also had the emerge of two Nigerians who we talked about previously on OAA Now. Of course, everybody knows about their story with what happened over at West Bloomfield with those two transfers on with Billy Thomas. Thomas ended up being at North Farmington, so it kind of was a interesting scenario. I don't know if it was a uncoupled situation over there, but but I was kind of surprised at the output of that score, and it was disappointing. Here's a team, North Farmington. This was the best year they've ever had under Todd Negocian, even under the dad, Tom Negocian. This is a team that won 20 games. Finished the year 20-3. It was a tough way to go out for North Farmington to lose to a UD Jesuit. Of course, we all know UD Jesuit is a good team. We know how good that they are. Pat Donnelly's done a very nice job with that team, but I thought personally, my opinion, that North Farmington would have knocked off UD Jesuit. I felt personally they had the athletes. They had Jerome Rogers. They had Anthony Quanska, Jacob Jobert, Caleb Hogans. But it was shocking to see that they could not get it done against a very good UD Jesuit team, that ended up knocking them off. And it was an unfortunate situation for North Farm to see the way that their season ended up in that game. Next team we're going to talk about, of course, is the game with Clarkson and Auburn Hills Avondale. That game was at Troy for the regional semifinals. You got to give Clarkson a lot of credit for what they did. It was total annihilation into that matchup. They shut down. Goodness, my memory's been out of my brain. They beat a very good Avondale team, of course. Avondale had a really nice year. under they ended up shocking Troy Athens the buzzard. But this is a good Clarkson team. You know what I mean, that they played, and it was a tough situation for Avondale. You know what I mean, to go up against a very good Clarkson team like that, and then of course recapping the district final, and of course recapping in the regional final. Of course, Clarkson ended up having to play Macomb, Dakota, and of course a lot of people have been. This is where Foster Lawyer ended up going off for 35 points, against a very good Macomb, Dakota team at Williamac Red. They ended up we got to give a lot of credit. A lot of people are buying the Foster Lawyer bandwagon. Of course, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to be honest with you. I'll tell you why I'm not. Lawyer's having a heck of a year. He's having a great year. But when I look at him in a very similar situation to Mackenzie Harbord at Birmingham Seaholm. Of course, Lawyer has a lot of talent around him. We got Andrew Myers, around. You also got David Dogmorton. You got Josh News. You got Jonah Newsblatt. Newblatt. Got Coach Ewins. I think Lawyer right now is benefiting from the talent that he's getting right now because they got a good enough team around him. It's very similar to Mackenzie Harbord. Why I say that, it's very simple. Because Seaholm, of course, in girls basketball, under Coach January Haleski, had a very good team around Mackenzie Harbord. You know what I mean? And of course, Mackenzie Harbord was the best kept secret of that season. It was exposed this year because she didn't have the team surrounding around her. And that's allowed most teams to focus on her the next year. Lawyer's going to have that same problem, I think, heading into next year, because even though Clarkson's still going to be a good team, they really don't have a true inside threat. You know what I mean? When you don't, even though they lose they still have Throgmorton coming back, but Lawyer might have to carry the load even harder. And I know he's got some very good basketball IQ. Of course, we know we all know his dad, of course, former Detroit Piston coach John Kuster. But it is what it is. So when you look at that situation, don't mind that, my phone's going off. But when you look at the situation over there, I just think personally that with Lawyer, I just think with Lawyer, when I look at Lawyer, he's going to be an okay player. I think he's going to be a good enough ball player to make sure that he'll stabilize everything. He'll make sure that everything will turn around. But when you look at Clarkston, when you look at Clarkston, everything goes around Foster Lawyer. And I just think he's benefiting right now because he's got the team around him. Now we don't know about what's going to happen next year. So I think personally, when you look at it here, this could be his best chance, to maybe make a run at the whole thing. So I'd be really shocked, to say the least. A lot of people are asking me about Clarkson is that, does this Clarkson team have enough to win a state title? They do. They got a deep bench. They got a good enough team, And, of course, you look at this Clarkson team, and I just noticed an article read by Keith Dunlap, written by Keith Dunlap of the Oakland Press, of course. Keith Dunlap's been on our show a couple times. This could be a very interesting dynamic. If Clarkson were to win a state title in boys basketball, they've already won a state title in football. You know what I mean? So, but you don't know what this would make Clarkson probably one of the top teams around the entire state to see what is going on here for Coach. Kurt Richards already won a state title with the Wolves. He's won 2 of them. But I still think that first one, Clarkson had an easier bracket. But if Clarkson were to win a state title, they would have, this year in boys basketball, I think they would have earned it because they would have been having to play UD Jesuit. They knocked them off. They likely would play probably one of the best teams in the state in Detroit Western. I still think I think they're a better team than Detroit Western. And then I think that they'll eventually play Muskegon, which they have Mr. Basketball over there, and I got to figure out the name. His Clarkson. Last name's Davis. I know that he's going to Michigan State next year. So I think it's going to be a very interesting situation when you look at Clarkson. I think when you look at the Wolves heading in, we're going to preview the game with Detroit University with Detroit UD Jesuit. That's going to be at 5:30 on Tuesday at Callahan Hall. Of course, it's a virtual home game for University of Detroit Jesuit because they're really close by, and I think Clarkson's going to probably be in a disadvantage, even though I think they're going to be wearing white in that game at Callahan Hall. But when you look at that game, when you look at the emergence of Foster Loyer, this guy's a stud. You know what I mean? He's a good player, very good player. He knows what he's doing. He knows what it takes for Clarkson to be successful. And of course, that 35-point game against Macomb, Dakota proved everything, for what he did in that game. And, but like I said, I know a lot of people are excited surrounding him. He's excited. The media people are excited. I'm just right now not sold on Loyer. I want to see how he does next year. I want to see how he does in 2 years. You know what I mean? Before me saying something about Loyer, about how good he is, when I look at Clarkson. But you got a couple guys surrounding him. You got Andrew Myers. He's going to Madonna next year. A lot of people have been hyping up Myers. You know what I mean? And they got Taman Throgmorton. You know what I mean? Throgmorton going to he was a transfer from Wall Lake Northern. I wasn't sold on him. I'm still not sold on him. You know what I mean? To see how but I'm scared to see how they do next year. For Dan Fife over there. But we'll see what happens in that game. Also recapping the regional, I thought personally it was the one at Troy, I heard it was crazy. Both sites of Troy and Southfield were crazy. I was a little worried about the Troy regional because of the venue, because it's a very small gym. I heard it was cram packed over there. It was a tough go. And and then you look at Southfield, a bigger place, a bigger venue. I think it would have made sense if it, I don't know. It's just my opinion. I know that they both schools put in for it, you know what I mean? But it is what it is. So, okay. All right, now, everybody, when we come back, we're going to preview the Clarkston versus Detroit University Jesuit matchup here on OAA Now. Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Termina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts of Between Terminus on O1TB. Very curious, of course, we're going to be previewing the state quarterfinal matchup that features the only OAA team left, which is the Clarkson Wolves. Clarkson will play, like I said, the University of Detroit Jesuit in the state quarterfinals. Of course, the winner of that will go on the state semifinals at the Breslin Center in East Lansing on the campus of Michigan State University. You look at the matchups, I'm curious to see. It's a big matchup for Clarkson going up against a very good University of Detroit Jesuit team. We're going to preview each matchup very thoroughly into that matchup. But when you look at Clarkston, I mean, like, they're 24-0 for a reason. They've beaten some really good basketball teams. They beat North Farmington twice. But also UD Jesuits also been around. I mean, they're also a very good basketball team. They won the Catholic League at the University of Detroit Mercy's Callahan Hall. They knocked off a good Orchard Lake St. Mary's team there. But you look at the matchup, I think it's going to be a good matchup. I mean, like, I still look at the matchup between Clarkston and UD Jesuit it's a very, very difficult matchup, I think, for Clarkston because of the two Nigerians inside. But when you look at the game in that matchup, I don't know if Dan Fife would have, if he could possibly at times maybe put in Coach Hewins and Jonah Newblatt together. I mean, it's possible, because the matchup of those 2'6" Nigerians, even though you're giving up you're going to give up at least some offensive firepower, because you look at the game with Macomb Dakota, for Clarkson, they were exposed in the paint in that matchup. They were really exposed. I mean, Macomb Dakota in that game in the regional final against Clarkson just took it to Clarkson inside the paint. I mean, it was that bad. I mean, and you look at a team like UD Jesuit, of course, you got Kenias Winston, but you also got the two Nigerians who can go inside and basically they could dunk it. They could just go inside and and do some damage. It doesn't matter if you're a sophomore or not. When you're 6'9", you got to use your athleticism. And these two Nigerians, they clearly have the athleticism to match up with Clarkson. I mean, and then of course you look at the and there may be times where Dan Fife's gonna have to probably put in Taven Throgmorton. You know what I mean? Because I know Throgmorton comes off the bench. I know that he does. But in this game, you got a very good player in Josh Bonzine. He's a defensive specialist, you know what I mean? I think he's going to draw the defensive assignment against Kenias Winston, but I just think in that matchup, the problem for Coach Dan Fife's going to be is those two 6'9" monsters. If you can go in there, if Clarkson can get them into foul trouble, that's going to be something, because I don't know how deep the University of Detroit Jesuits bench is. I really don't know. If you get those two Nigerians in the foul trouble, they're going to have a lot of problems. You know what I mean? I mean, if they would have had Billy Thomas for this matchup, my goodness gracious. I mean, Clarkson would not have a chance if Billy Thomas was still at the University of Detroit Jesuit. I mean, even with how good they are, I just still don't think they had a chance. But you look at the matchup, I think the key matchup, I think the X factor of this game, no doubt, is Andrew Myers. Because you look at the matchup, I mean, like, there's going to be a lot of attention given the Foster lawyer. I mean, there's going to be a lot of attention, but the other guy is Andrew Myers. I think he's been getting the shaft of of all the lawyer hype all year. I think he's getting the shaft of us. It is possible they could put Winston on you're going to probably put Winston on Myers, but it would not surprise me if Pat Donnelly decides to put his other good defender, I think it's Gary Morse, I think it's his name, on Lawyer, and also you could put Winston on Myers. Well, here's the key. I think Andrew Myers has been getting not getting any respect because of this situation. I mean, he is a very good point guard himself. I mean, he was the one, I would say, responsible in that Oxford game. You know what I mean? He was the one that carried in that Oxford game once Lawyer got in the foul trouble. I mean, like, when you look at that game, what happened was, I'll bet you UD Jesuit was going to watch that game. I will bet you they were going to watch that Oxford game. What happened in that game was Lawyer got into serious foul trouble, and Clarkson started to struggle once Lawyer got into foul trouble. And then once he came back second half, Clarkson ended up controlling the game and ended up dominating that game. I mean, when you look at that matchup with Clarkson, I think the key matchup, if you want to shut down Kenias Winston, you got to shut him down as 5. You got to take away the interior. You got to take away those two Nigerians. It's going to be a tough job. But if Clarkson's got to stay out of foul trouble, especially Newblatt and Chewins. If those two are in foul trouble, Clarkson's got no chance because I don't trust Taven Throgmorton guarding those two 6'9" Nigerians. Even if both those guys are still in, one of those guys has got to be in there, either Newblatt or Chewins. That's what if I'm Coach Dan Fife, I'm looking at that matchup, and I'm saying to myself, it's a tough match for us, and it is. It clearly is. I mean, you got to give and also got Cornelius Winston, of course. He was a Mr. Basketball candidate. He's probably going to be that next year for sure. But when you look at the matchup that UD Jesuit's going to give, I think UD Jesuit's going to give both Clarkson guards problems. And I noticed something in that Macomb Dakota game for Clarkson. They kind of struggled with full court pressure, and they struggled. I mean, Macomb Dakota took advantage of that. They also exposed them to the paint. If Myers and Lawyer are shut down, Clarkson's in a whole lot of trouble. I know it's a tough chore for UD Jesuit to do this against Clarkson, and it's a tough chore for anybody to do this against Clarkson. But the key, I think, for UD Jesuit to win is going to be, can they shut down both Lawyer and Myers? That's going to be the key for UD Jesuit to win over Clarkson. The key for Clarkson to beat UD Jesuit is get Cornelius Winston into foul trouble, but you got to also get the 6'9" Nigerians in the foul trouble. That's going to be a tough chore to do, I mean, and if you're Clarkson, I'm making sure keep Lawyer out of foul trouble, because if Lawyer gets in the foul trouble, they got no chance at Callahan Hall. Especially when you look at the matchup with the crowd, it's going to be a really, really loud atmosphere in that first game at Callahan Hall. I'm kind of surprised the game is at Callahan Hall in the first place because it's technically a UD Jesuit home game, it looks like. Because when you look at it, they have experience playing at Callahan Hall. The Cat League Championship game was at Callahan Hall. I think it's a tougher matchup, I think, for the Wolves to go into Callahan Hall and win there. I mean, I know Clarkson wants to play the best teams, and UD Jesuit clearly is one of the best teams in the state, so I just think personally it's not a good matchup. I don't think when you look at that for Clarkston, but another matchup I think is gonna be key is the bench. You know what I mean? The bench and the coaching matchup I think is gonna be huge because when you look at Clarkson usually goes about 6-7 deep. UD Jesuit I think usually goes about 8. I mean, both teams go about 8 deep. Take that back, but when you look at Clarkston, the Wolves, I mean, when you look at the game, I think both these teams are evenly matched. Even though I did read a projection by Cosmo, he said UD Jesuit will win by 4 because of 6'9" transfers. It could happen. It could very well happen. I just think the key is if Lawyer goes for 40 points against UD Jesuit, I would be really impressed. Because UD Jesuit's a good defensive team. And they have two 6'9" Nigerians. I don't think he's going to go for 35 like he did against Macomb Dakota. But I'll bet you Macomb Dakota, a lot of people were impressed with Lawyer. I think the key against Clarkson shutting down Myers. If they shut down both Lawyer and Myers down, it's going to be all over. But when you look at how to shut, and then of course you got Clarkson's defense. When I look at that game with Macomb Dakota, it was a heck of a game. I mean, it was a heck of a game. But Macomb Dakota did some things to expose Clarkson, like exposing paint. UD Jesuit's going to do that. I was kind of shocked in that game with North Farmington for UD Jesuit that their defense shut down the 3-point shot of North Farmington. North Farmington's strength was the 3-point shot, and the UD Jesuit and North Farmers couldn't shoot to save themselves in that game. I was surprised about that. And UD Jesuit, of course, I think the key is whoever wins this game, they got a good shot, I think, to win it all, even though you got to deal with Muskegon. You got Muskegon on the other side. They're going up against Lansing Eastern. Lansing Eastern's a good team. And then you got Detroit Western and the other side awaiting the winner of this game with Clarkston. And you got Detroit Western playing against Ypsilanti. They just knocked off Romulus. Romulus is a good team. I think that game's going to be a toss-up between Detroit Western and Ypsilanti. And then, of course, the other side, I think personally, if there's a team I think that can knock off Muskegon, it's either Clarkson. There's a couple candidates. Clarkson's one of them. I think can knock off Muskegon. I mean, Muskegon, with them, they basically, like, took 4 overtimes for Muskegon to beat Hudsonville. 4 of them. And Davis fouled out of that game. He fouled out of that game in the 4th quarter. I was surprised, because Muskegon's not a deep team. They're not deep. I mean, and it took them at least 4 overtimes to shut them down and into basically, Muskegon can be beat. They can be. You got to have a deep enough bench to knock them off. I think Clarkson has that. I think UD Jesuit has that. I don't know much about Detroit Western. I don't know if they have that. But I know Clarkson does. Clarkson has that capability to knock off a good UD Jesuit team. A good Muskegon team. Now, I don't know how Ypsilanti and Detroit Western's gonna be. I know that they're both very good basketball teams. I gotta do my research on that. But I just think personally, my projection, I'm gonna make a projection coming up on the games. So it would not surprise me, to see a Muskegon versus Clarkson final. It would not surprise me if Muskegon played Clarkson. Now, I don't know what will happen if Clarkson were to win a state title for Coach Dan Fife. It would make Clarkson look like kings. Seriously. Because they've been undefeated in football, undefeated in boys basketball, 2 main sports. Of course, in baseball, they went to state quarterfinals. Of course, so Clarkson right now is an all-time high right now. And I don't know what it is, But my projection is here is, when I look at this game, when I look at their game with UD Jesuit, I just think Canese Winston's going to get his points. I think Foster Lawyer is going to get his points. I think it's going to be, I think Lawyer's going to go off for 22. I think Winston gets 25. The key difference that game is going to be the inside interior, where I just think those 2 Nigerians are going to give Clarkson, Jonah Newblatt, and Cole Chewins everything it can handle. I just think the difference in this game is going to be rebounding. UD Jesuit has that. Clarkson has that. But if Clarkson was to win this game, Taven Throgmorton's going to have, I would think, the game of his life. I think he would have to have the game of his life. Because that is a matchup nightmare. I don't think UD Jesuit can cover Throgmorton. I really don't think they can cover him. But at the end of the day, I just think when you look at the game, when you look at it here, but here's another problem. Experience. UD Jesuit was in the state semifinal last year. Let's not forget that. Most of those kids they have were on that team. Even though this is a different type of team Pat Donnelly has. But I forgot to mention experience here. Clarkson doesn't have that here. Whereas UD Jesuit has. Because they went to state semifinals last year. They ended up losing to Bloomfield Hills. Bloomfield Hills was a very good team that year. For Coach Dwayne Graves. And I just think personally, in that matchup, in that game, it's going to be a tough matchup to look at when you look at experience, Now, a lot of people said in that game with Macomb, Dakota, I thought personally that those 3 transfers were going to make a difference in that game. you got to give credit to Clarkson. They shut down Jermaine Jackson. Jermaine Jackson's a good player. I mean, they limited him to 14 points and made him work hard for his points. I mean, their guards shut him down. And you got to look at, in that situation, where, in the end of the day, I just think when you look at the game, when I look at it and thoroughly analyze this game, I just think, in the end of the day, I think Clarkson's getting their first loss of the year here against UD Jesuit. And it's going to be a close game because I think the problem is those two 6'9" players, those 2'9" Nigerians are going to be the difference in that game. And I think Lawyer and Winston are going to cancel each other out. I think that their best defender is going to shut down Myers. And then, of course, the difference in that game is I think UD Jesuit's going to pound the glass inside, expose Clarkston in the interior, like what Macomb Dakota did. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good game. There's no doubt it's going to be a good game. It's going to be jam-packed. But at the end of the day, I just think UD Jesuit, experience on their side. They have a lot of energy. They're going to try to methodical beat you. I mean, last year they could run and gun it on you. They don't have the type of athletes they could to run and gun it. Clarkson's going to try to speed it up. But at the end of the day, I just think, UD Jesuit, too much experience. Those two guys inside, they're gonna find just enough to shut down Lawyer, and Myers. I just think it's going to be a 62-58 game in favor of the Cubs over the Wolves, and it's going to be it'd be tough, you know what I mean? Because I know this is the furthest an OA team since Boompa Hills, of course, went to state finals last year, and then of course you had Lake Orion going, Rochester in the state quarterfinals the year before that, and a couple of years back when they had James Young, and they had Lake Orion, who actually ended up going to state quarterfinals, of course, on Coach Tom Reese's first year before losing to Macomb Lions Cruise North. I just think, Clarkson, of course, down the line, of course, went to state semifinals, of course. We all know that team. That was a very good team that year. They went to Breslin. But I just think this year, I think it's going to be a very, very tough task. I think it wouldn't surprise me if Clarkson beats UD Jesuit, but I just think it's, at the end of the day, it's going to be too much cuss because of the inside game against Clarkson. I just think because of those 2 6'9" Nigerians, because there's a reason why they're good. You know what I mean? If not, why wouldn't Billy Thomas Sr. send them over to UD Jesuit? And then, of course, had all that fiasco. You know what I mean? So, like I said, we'll see what happens there with that situation. Okay, now when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about OAA realignment. Of course, the realignment meeting coming up Monday at 7 o'clock at Farmington. We'll talk about that and, of course, some projections and ideas how each division is going to look like for next season here on OAA Now. Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Termina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts between Terminas on Orion Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome our friends from Oxford Community Television here with us watching us on TV. We like to thank you for the comments, everybody. You look at coming up, of course, on Monday is where the OAA meetings come up. Everybody talks about divisions. They talk about where they think is going to be the best case scenario for the divisions to look like next year. I kind of got a good idea what's going to look like. When you look at how divisions are, you know what I mean. They're based on some technicalities. Of course, the division champion moves up a division, whereas the last place team ends up going down a division. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. You know, they also tell you what division, how it's going to work. It's going to work either be a 4-6 format or a 3-8 format. Of course, football, of course, there's a 3-8 format, and then for red, white, and blue. Based on divisions, of course, red being the highest, white being the second division, and blue being the third division. Of course, volleyball divisions were actually released, the other couple weeks ago. I mean, like, my thoughts on the divisions there was very interesting. I mean, to see Adams and girls volleyball move up, which is, to me, they got experience coming back, but and then of course you drop a team like Farmington down, which came as no surprise, but to move Adams up was a surprise for me because of the I know how good Art Garner is as a coach. I know how good his team is, his program is, but Adams has been a team that's not been consistent, and to see what happened. And then of course you got to look at Clarkson and Orion in the same division. You got Stony Creek, who's gonna be good as well. I mean, like, I don't know how good Vince Muscat at Troy is gonna be, but you look at the division. It's either gonna be the red for volleyball coming up in the fall. It's either gonna be painted in Wolves blue and yellow or Dragons green and white. And right now, by the looks of it, looks like Clarkston right now has got everything right now where it's got, you know what I mean? Like, Kelly Arabal Pinner's done a very nice job with that team. Of course, Lake Orion, I'm kind of worried with them because I think they're in a little bit of a downward trend a little bit because, the talent might not be there. Of course, they got some good players coming back, but I just think right now, when you look at the talent level in that red division, I just think it's going to be Clarkston. They're going to be very, very good for years to come. And I looked at their middle school programs. Their middle school programs are already solid over there in Clarkston country. And then you got Lake Orion, of course. They got some players who could play, but not to the extent that what Clarkston has coming up. And I just think right now with the way Clarkston is in girls volleyball, I just think it's going to be a tough transition, I think, for both those teams. But as for Adams' sake, I don't think it's a good idea. It was not. I don't think it was a good idea for them to move up to the red. You got to deal with Orion, Clarkston, the big schools. You got Seaholm in there, of course. Seaholm was a senior. They're still going to be a very good team, of course, under Coach Heather Lippert. Then you got Oxford, of course. They're still going to be there. They're going to be competitive. Stony Creek will still be competitive. So it'll be a tough transition, I think, for Art Garner and his Rochester Adams Highlanders. I just think it's going to be a very tough challenge. Like I said, we'll see what happens when districts, come out in June, because that is the main indicator of where both boys and girls volleyball and for girls volleyball and girls basketball, along with boys basketball, where the districts are going to go, heading into that campaign. When you look at soccer, of course, also boys soccer is also out. It doesn't surprise me that Troy and Rochester schools are still in that division. It doesn't surprise me that at all with them. That they're in the same division. Of course, Lake Orion. Also Clarkson's still in the red as well for soccer. Of course, they have Curtis Payment. Of course, he was the former coach at Lake Orion before taking the job at Clarkston. And then of course in the white got Lake Orion, Oxford. I think the white it's gonna be more balanced. But you can't underestimate the red at all. But what the divisions they have. Of Of course, Oxford plays their games on the blue turf. Orion plays their games at the on their own soccer field. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens over there. You know what I mean? But still, Oxford does have that soccer field at the elementary school if they need it. If they need it to play their games on that field. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens when it comes to soccer. But of course, spring sports is also coming up as well. Of course, girls soccer actually started playing the other day. I was kind of surprised with some of the results. Of course, Adams started off on the right note, knocking off Avondale. And then of course, Hazel Park's on the Hazel Park started the year off strong. They're going to be a good team. It wouldn't surprise me that the Red gets a lot of recognition. It wouldn't surprise me that the league gets a lot of recognition for girls soccer, along with baseball and softball, along with track and field. In those situations there. But let's go to realignment, of course, for girls and boys basketball. Of course, like I said, the meeting takes place 7 o'clock Monday at Farmington. So it'll be interesting to see what the coaches are going to think. I mean, like, what I think personally, what will happen. Of course, when I look at the standings from a year ago for both boys and girls basketball, you look at what happened this year. And we're going to go boys first, then we're going to go girls, of course. We all know on the Red, Clarkson's still going to move up. Clarkson's going to stay up. I mean, you got Southfield, North Farmington. But the question's going to be who goes up to the Red and who goes down to the white. And when you look at the situation there, I just think when you look at the league next year, a lot of people ask me, Bloomfield Hills, is this the team that moves down? And I think the Blackhawks, they had a bad year. They had a rough year, of course. We all know about the Dwayne Graves situation, what happened there. I just think personally, when you look at the situation there, but their sub-varsity teams are very good. Their JV and freshman teams are extremely talented. So it wouldn't surprise me if they take the year in the white and go up to the Red. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they stay up. But that would upset a team like Troy Athens, who ended up winning the OAA white, and they want to move to Red. I think when you look at the situation there, I think Athens will move up to the Red, and Bloomfield Hills will go down to the white. So we'll just see what happens there in that side of it. But I still think it's my best bet's going to be Athens to be in the Red, and Bloomfield Hills will be in the white. And then it gets a little bit more interesting when you look at the white and the blue debate in the Red, and the white and the blue debate of the OA. I mean, of course, Rochester finished the year 0-21. They were winless. And then, of course, you have Lake Orion, of course. They were a team that won 3 of their last 4 games to close out the regular season on a good note, but ended up losing a tough on the Rochester Adams. Of course, Adams is a Red team. But it opens up the debate because you have co-champions in the blue. You have West Bloomfield, you have Avondale. And you look at what team moves up and what team moves down. I think personally, I know that there's been debate with Lake Orion, and there's been debate with possibly moving both Lake Orion and Rochester down. I think when you look at that situation, I think, a lot of people ask me, move one team down, you know what I mean? But what would that do for the other team? You know what I mean? I would say personally, this is my own opinion. Now, I might not agree with some of the experts here, is I would move Lake Orion and Rochester both down a division and move up both West Bloomfield and Avondale, because West Bloomfield and Avondale both deserve to move up in the division. And I also look at Lake Orion. They played most of those teams in the blue and ended up losing to during the regular season. I think right now Lake Orion would be best suited, I think, in the blue. And let's not forget, the blue was beneficial to Lake Orion. Let's not forget, because remember, Lake Orion was in the blue when they went up to state quarterfinals, when they ended up winning that. If I'm Lake Orion, I will look in this situation is what would be the best bet for me to succeed. And I would say, you know what, to get more wins. I would want to go down a division, get more wins, go on up, and then go on up back to white. You know what I mean? I think that would be a good idea if you're a Dragon. I think if you're a Dragon fan, I think it would be a good idea. But we don't know where it's going to go. But we know Rochester's going to be down the blue next year. They got a very good crew down there. Got a very good crew coming up, and I think if I'm an Oxford fan, I would definitely like to see this where you would bring Lake Orion down a division from the blue from the white to the blue because you play them twice, but your team is gonna be a little bit down, but but it would be nice to play your rival twice a year, like they did in girls basketball this year. So when you look at that situation there, I think it'd be interesting. I still think in the white, it would not surprise me if West Bloomfield and Avondale move up and Lake Orion and Rochester go down from the white to the blue. But it also wouldn't surprise me if West Bloomfield moves up and Lake Orion stays up and Avondale stays in the blue. So it wouldn't surprise me. So that's going to be a huge debate, I think, personally, there. And then, of course, the blue to the gold. Of course, Farmington moving up to the blue, I think, makes a lot of sense. And then Groves going down to the gold also makes a lot of sense because when you look at Groves that they struggled this year, but they were in a lot of close ball games. I think with Groves, I think geographically makes sense. For Farmington, of course, moving up, playing some tough, good teams, I think it's going to be a benefit to them when you look at the teams there. But if it was me, you know what I mean, if I'm at the meetings, of course, my projections for the Red would be Clarkson, Adams, North Farmington, Southfield, Lathrop, Troy, Athens. That's my Red. White, I would say, would be Troy, Bloomfield Hills, Pontiac, Oak Park, West Bloomfield, Avondale. Blue, Lake Orion, Stony Creek, Rochester, Oxford. I say Stony Creek, Rochester, Oxford, Seaholm, and Farmington. And then the blue would be, and the gold would be Groves, Berkeley, Ferndale, Royal Oak, Hazel Park, and golly, gotta remember the last one here. I gotta remember that last one. God, it's tip of my tongue. Ugh, I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? I'll figure it out. It's kind of tough when you try to figure out all these 24 teams around the league. You know what I mean? But let's go now from the boys circuit to the girls circuit. Of course, when I look at the girls, I think it's gonna be an interesting topic. Of course, I think it's a little bit more clear in the girls than it is in the boys. I still think it's gonna be a 4-6 division. But when you look at the Red, of course, you're still gonna have Southfield, Lathrop, and Southfield, Lathrop, Harrison are gonna be very good teams along with Adams. I still think when you look at the situation there, I think the debates between North Farmington and Adams possibly move down. North Farmington did finish last place in the league, and then Adams, of course, and then of course you have Oxford, who ended up winning the league, going 10-0. I think Oxford moves up a division because of their perfect league record. Even though the talent they have coming back is not as great as like a team like North Farmington, but I still think Oxford does move up because of the fact that league record really, really gets them in to that situation there. And then of course the white, I think North Farmington moves down and play, and Royal Oak is a team that's really been interesting to me because Brian Zapata's done a really nice job with this team. They won a league championship. They shared the blue with Oak Park, but I think Royal Oak, personally, because I think they have a freshman girls basketball team, I think they move up a division because of the and also if you want to move up, you know what I mean? You got to move up, play the big boys. You're going to have to play some teams that you're not used to playing, and going to places where you're not used to playing. So I think it'll be an interesting move there when you look at those teams. And then, of course, the blue and the gold, I would switch Groves and I would switch Southfield. Southfield's going to be a very good team for next year for Coach Jamie Glentz and his team. And Groves, they're going to struggle, I think, next year as well. So when you look at the teams, I think in the Red, I think my projections for in the Red for next year, I think it's going to be Southfield, Lathrop, Harrison, Adams, Stony Creek, Stony, Southfield, Harrison, Adams, Stony, Clarkston, and Oxford. I think Oxford's going to be moving up in that division, and the white is going to be white's going to be North Farmington, Bloomfield Hills, Troy, Orion, West Bloomfield, and I'm saying Royal Oak moves up. You know, I mean, the blue, I got Avondale, Rochester, Oak Park, Seaholm, Southfield, and Rochester. That's the team I got moving up. I mean, in that one, and then the gold I got in the gold I got Berkeley, Hazel Park, Ferndale, Groves, and Troy Athens. Of course, you know, when you look at the league, I think it makes a lot more sense in the with the girls and the boys, because I think it's going to be a less messy situation. But those are just my projections, so I really don't know what's going to happen over at the meetings. You know what I mean? So once we find out the information, I'll give you a clear heads up on how information will come up. Of course, like I said, we'll see what happens heading into the year. Of course, you know, we just found out the districts for baseball, softball been released. Interesting when you look at the districts there in baseball, softball. Of course, I'm very curious to see what happens over there heading into the year. Okay, now everybody, when I sign out here, wish everybody the best of luck coming up in the spring, and enjoy your days, everybody. Okay, once again, everybody, I'm Sammy Tamina. I'm signing out. Good night. God bless us all.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.